Hello again. One of the things which I do find irritating is the way in which the police in Britain go out of their way to be soft on black protesters and demonstrators and let them get away with things for which they would arrest white people on the spot. The thumbnail to this video shows some people dressed in uniforms which indicate their allegiance to a political cause, that of the Black Lives Matter movement. What's wrong with this picture, children? Well, the problem is that here are a number of people committing a criminal offence in broad daylight, right in front of the police, and yet there is not the slightest chance of their being arrested for it. This is because they are black, and special rules apply to them, and to their antics as well. Just look at the black berets, black tops and camouflage trousers. These people are deliberately dressing like this so that everybody knows they're disciples of black power. It is also intended to make them look vaguely military and menacing. What would happen if a bunch of white people dressed like that in London? I will tell you in a minute. First though, a word about the 1936 Public Order Act, through which these people are driving coach and horses, and do so regularly. In the early 1930s, Oswald Mosley, who had formerly been a Member of Parliament, started a fascist party in Britain. Because they dressed in black uniforms to show who they were, he and his followers became known as the Black Shirts. This was getting a bit much because they really did look threatening, and so the government of the day decided to put a stop to it. In 1936, the Public Order Act was passed, which among other things made the wearing of uniforms for political purposes illegal. It is still in force to this day and says any person who in any public place or at any public meeting wears uniform signifying his association with any political organisation or with the promotion of any political object shall be guilty of an offence. I give a link to the legislation on the government website in the description to this video. The police are very keen to enforce the Public Order Act when white people breach it. For example, in November 1974, a group of men from Sinn Féin, the political wing of the IRA, appeared at Hyde Park's Speaker's Corner wearing black berets, black gloves and dark glasses, which was recognised as their uniform. The policeman on duty that day did not hesitate. He radioed for assistance and a load of police cars and vans appeared. All 12 of the men were arrested, taken to the nearest police station, where they were charged under the Public Order Act with the wearing of uniforms publicly, which indicated their loyalty to a political group. All of them later appeared in court and were fined £50 each. The police are still very hot on arresting people for political uniforms, as long as they're not black. The Britain First movement has fallen foul of the Public Order Act as recently as 2016. Paul Golding, who is a leading member of Britain First, was arrested and subsequently convicted of wearing a political uniform in 2015, even though he was out and about on his own. He was simply wearing a fleece with the words Britain First on it. He was also wearing a cloth cap, which is something of a fashion among the followers of that group. It was enough for the police, though. He was convicted under the Public Order Act. In 2016, he was arrested again under the same act for the same offence of wearing a uniform signifying support for a political cause, and on that occasion he was fined £450. I give a link to details of this in the description to this video. We are forced to ask ourselves the question, why is it that if a white person campaigning for a political movement concerned with race is arrested for wearing a political uniform, even if he's out in the streets by himself, why is it that groups of black people wearing uniforms showing their support for a political cause are not arrested? The obvious answer is that the police are more inclined to be soft in their approach to black people than they are when dealing with white people. This surely cannot be right. The photograph which I've used in the thumbnail to this video shows 3 people committing a criminal offence for which white people are arrested and brought before the courts. They appear to be immune to prosecution, though, by virtue of the colour of their skin. This is surely not the kind of even-handed treatment we want. Indeed, it is on the face of it purely racism. This is not the only example of such lenient treatment of black people compared to the way that white people are usually handled when there's a crowd of them. Imagine a bunch of Britain First protesters were shouting in Whitehall and one of them climbed up onto the cenotaph and tried to set fire to the Union flag hanging there. Would the police just let him get on with it? That's what they did during the Black Lives Matter protest. Now try and picture the scene when a mob of football hooligans are chanting and growing unruly. Would police officers try to appease them by kneeling down on the ground in front of them? No? Yep, that's what they did when faced with a crowd of Black Lives Matter supporters last summer. My impression is that the police are often a little scared of black people and tend to back away from them. A lone member of Britain First makes a far more tempting target if you want to crack down on uniforms by making an arrest under the 1936 Public Order Act than a bunch of black people who are similarly acting in defiance of the law.